What is up, everybody? Welcome into our members only Q&A for this week. It is Wednesday, June 4th. Appreciate you guys being here. As I mentioned to you guys all the time, a couple things. A, thank you so much for being members and your patronage. It means a ton. But also, one of my favorite things that I get to do every week, you guys always bring a ton of amazing questions. So excited to dive into those today. I should be here for about an hour or so. So we'll get to as many questions as we possibly can over the course of the next hour. It looks like we've got a bunch lined up already. So we will get started without any further ado. John, thank you for the first question today. Came in at 6:52 a.m. We had two Johns that came in at 6:52 a.m. just battling it out. John DeSoma, Andy, I know we are a long ways off from the start of the season, but how do you see the wide receiver room shaking out from a game day active standpoint? Seems like Reed, Dobbs, Wicks, and Golden are the top four, but who is the fifth active player on game day is trickier. Assuming everyone is healthy and Hardman makes the team as the punt returner, where does that leave Seavon? Is he for more of a redshirt season? Is he in for more of a redshirt season? I think it's a really fun conversation. I've talked about this a little bit in the past. Specifically, I think you're right in the top four. You've got Golden, Wicks, Reed, and Dobbs, who are more likely to be, I think, active on game day in your top four wide receivers. Seavon Williams is going to make the team. We know that. So 5 wide receivers are for sure game day actives. The first thing you have to figure out is who makes the roster after that. If Seavon Williams just looks really good, maybe he shows that he can do some kick returner stuff. Maybe Matthew Golden, who's been on the punt return unit, maybe he's the punt returner. Maybe you don't need a McCole Hardman active, right? And in that case, maybe Savion's just your fifth, and he's probably the fifth in that group, but then he probably gets that nod and is active on game day. Above and beyond that, then again, even if you are keeping somebody else, if you're keeping a sixth receiver, it probably comes down to Bo Melton, Malik Heath, or McCole Hardman. 3 very different types of wide receivers. With Hardman, you're getting more of that gadget player and the kick returner, punt returner. With Malik Heath, possession wide receiver, outside wide receiver, more of your traditional possession type guy. And then with Bo Melton, more of a speed guy, potentially could do some coverage unit stuff, potentially could do some kick return stuff as well, but primarily kind of almost like Jaden Reed insurance with his ability to play inside and do a lot of the stuff that Jaden Reed does, just not to the same level that Jaden does. I could make an argument that I think the best receiver of the 3 might be Bo Melton. I could make an argument that the best blocker and possession receiver is Malik Heath. And I can make an argument that the best gadget guy and punt returner, kick returner is McCole Hardman. I have made the argument, and I still stand by this argument, is that I think the presence of all 3 almost is detrimental to all 3. What I mean by that is if I'm Green Bay, I have 5 wide receivers that I'm keeping, barring a trade, barring anything crazy happening from an injury standpoint or anything like that. I've got Dobbs, Wicks, Reed, Golden, and Williams. 5 guys that are for sure bets to make the team. If that stays the same, I also know that Christian Watson's coming back at some point. And even if I keep a number 6 wide receiver, I probably don't need that one forever because once Watson comes back, that wide receiver is very much going to be in danger of losing their spot at that point. I also know that there's not many waiver claims that take place at the end of, cut downs. You get a couple here or there, and certainly a team could have 2 or 3 guys claimed. But the odds that Green Bay would release all 3 wide receivers and all 3 of them would be claimed are next to none. And my thought is that I don't think Malik Heath gets claimed. I don't think Bo Melton gets claimed. Hardman might get claimed and or just end up somewhere else. That's within the realm of possibility. But I think that they probably get at least 2, maybe even all 3. But at bare minimum, even in a worst case scenario, get one of those guys back. Even if you take it a step beyond that, if you were to lose all 3, I don't think Green Bay is going to lose a ton of sleep over it. That means 3 other receivers on other teams are probably ending up released, and you can probably claim somebody on the practice squad or set somebody up on your practice squad to be that next guy up in case of emergency if that were to happen. And you're probably looking at like 8-9 weeks that you need somebody like that even potentially until Christian Watson gets back, maybe a little bit more than that. But for me, I feel very confident that I'm going to get a couple of those guys back in the practice squad and can call them up if needed rather than having to make that decision. To your larger point, if a McCole Hardman is on the team and he is the primary punt returner, then I do think that there's a real chance that Seavon Williams is inactive in that case, and you end up with your 4 primary guys plus Hardman as your 5th, and Seavon Williams probably has to sit out some games until there's an injury or something else happens where he gets his opportunity to get out there on the field. I think your thinking is overall logical and in the right path. I'm just very interested to see, do they keep only 5? If they do keep 5, who do they get back in the practice squad? If they keep 6, does that mean Seavon Williams is going to be inactive? If it's Heath or if it's Melton, Seavon has every right to beat them out just as the number 5 wide receiver on game day, which again, then you're deactivating those guys, that number 6 guy, which again, do you really need him on the roster at all in that situation? And then I think Christian coming back clouds that at some point as well. So it's a very interesting conversation, and I'm very intrigued to see how it plays out. Happy hump day, Andy. Everyone be sure to like this video. John, thank you so much for that. And thanks for being here. Cora asks, any insight on Sam Brown Jr.? Did you see any of him while watching Matthew Golden's Houston tape? Cora, I have not done any sort of deep dive on Sam Brown Jr. as of yet. I probably will get to it at some point. I don't know that I'm going to, I can almost guarantee you I'm not going to do an episode on a deep dive of just Sam Brown Jr., but I probably will take a look at him at some point and just throw it in the back end or the front end of an episode just to kind of give a quick take on him. I did a little work on him pre-draft, height, weight, speed guy, really athletic. Did notice him a little bit when I was watching tape of Matthew Golden at Houston. And then, of course, when he was at OTAs yesterday, had the opportunity to watch him a little bit. Unfortunately, had that big drop in the 2-minute drill with the number 2s, but he definitely looks the part. He's definitely one of those guys that you just look at and you say, whether you're looking at it from a college tape standpoint or just in person or any of it, you say, how is that guy available as a rookie undrafted free agent in the beginning of June? Just should not happen. He'll definitely, I think, battle it out for a practice squad spot. We'll see if that anything can kind of come of that, but I have not done any sort of deep dive on Sam Brown Jr. as of yet. John, did you see LVN's comments on his thumb injury last year? How much more optimistic does that make you that he may make that third-year leap? Injury aside, Ben doesn't seem to be LVN's game. He looks a bit stiff out there. I figured he'd have better Ben since he was an 84th percentile shuttle and 90th percentile 3-cone. Why do you think that agility just doesn't show up? It's a really good question, John. I do, have some hope for LVN this year. I do think the fact that he had that broken thumb a year ago and had to wear the cast is definitely something that could have put a little bit of, strain and just issue on his season as a whole. And hopefully him being healthy this year is definitely a difference maker there. I think LVN is a solid football player. I think any idea that he is just this bad football player, can't do anything to help your team or anything like that is foolhardy. Every team would take LVN on their roster right now. Not even just like if he doesn't get if I told every NFL team he will not get an ounce better, every single team still has a spot on their roster for an LVN because he still would be a very good rotational edge defender. No question about it. Now, Green Bay did not draft him in the top 15 to be a solid rotational edge defender. They want him to be something a bit more impactful than that. I'm hopeful that we see a little bit more from LVN. I'm also a little bit more of taking the approach that as far as a huge breakout or something that we're going to see is a significant change in his ability, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not saying he can't. I think there's still a ton of talent there. As far as why the agility doesn't show up quite as much, I think it does in certain moments. I think so take, for example, him chasing down Justin Fields in the open field for that sack, right? Yes, that is a straight line speed, but also it's the ability to kind of track him and change directions in real time to go take that angle and get to Justin Fields in that moment. As far as anything else, I just think that he struggles with a pass rush plan and knowing how to exactly get to the quarterback, whether that be through bending the edge or through a bull rush or through, just a variety of moves, whatever those might be. He just doesn't have that plan yet. And maybe if we start seeing him put together a little bit better of a plan, maybe that bend and just some of those raw traits come out a little bit more. But so far, that's been his biggest issue, is just kind of the game awareness, the football intelligence, and then putting together a pass rush plan. I think if that starts to come, all of those gifts will come out, but we just haven't been able to see that to a large extent so far. Snoop Robbie Rob, the member for 21 freaking months. Thank you so much, Snoop Robbie Rob. The Jaire recap episode was so effing great. I appreciate that. It did not get a ton of news, all things considered. And I think I know why. It's just because people are fatigued by the entire topic, right? I don't think that there is a ton of appetite left for more Jaire content until we have a resolution, which I totally get. It was one of those things that, I have certain things planned out that I want to talk about over the course of the next couple weeks, couple months, etc. That was not one that I had on my list to do. And then, as I mentioned, just kind of all of a sudden out of nowhere, decided to put that article together on PackerReport.com, knowing that also eventually I would get to it as an episode. But quite frankly, it was really helpful for me to go back and see where this entire path kind of started with, meandered through the middle, and then where we're at today with it, to the point where we're still over a week later from the Matt Schneidman report that they offered him a contract or a change in contract. And, we're open to having him back, and that Jaire wants to be a Packer, that he plans to show up to mini camp. And we still have not had a resolution to any real extent. So I'm still very intrigued at what's going to happen here. But for me, going through that and putting it together was very, very helpful, just to kind of recalibrate where we have been, where we are, and maybe where we will be eventually with Jaire Alexander. Is the Z-Biotics ad meant to be a jump scare? It is not, Snoop Robbie Rob. Did you start using Z-Biotics before or after alcohol caused you to miss a day of work? This is a true story. I meant to take it on that day that I totally forgot. 1,000,000% true story. I had 4 bottles at my disposal. I knew I was going to have, cause it was a friend's 40th birthday, and I knew it was going to be a heavy night of drinking. And I had literally had it out on the counter to take. This is not an ad. This is a 1,000,000% true story. And I had it ready to take, and I forgot to take it. And then of course I go out for the night and whatever. And the next day was a very, 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 very rough day. So I very much wish that I would have taken it. And that is not me getting paid to say that or anything. I legitimately wish I would have. And I do think it would have very much helped me on that particular day. I need to get that red jersey off Seavon so it can officially be Sex Panther season. Yes, I am all with you. Funny story. I don't know if you guys caught this. Kyle Malzahn, who does a great job covering Wisconsin sports for WFRV TV in Green Bay, posted a video of Seavon Williams. And the video was something like, get an up close and personal look at the athleticism of Seavon Williams, something to that extent. And it was a play where he is sprinting down the field, and then he kind of cuts and puts his hand down and comes back to the football and then goes to catch it. And it kind of hits off of his hands, and then he double catches it. He does come up with the catch, but it does clank off of his hands, and he has to double catch it, and then he turns upfield. And I know Kyle. Kyle was not trying to, rage bait or anything like that. And he was just posting it, literally being like, here's a close-up of Seavon Williams, what it looks like. I don't think Kyle could care one iota about the double catch. Most people don't even look as a double catch as like a bad thing, right? You have to have sort of like a kind of scouting background, or at least, kind of be football nerdy about it. And just kind of knowing Seavon as well with the drop issues he had in college. He just posted, like, look at the athleticism of Seavon Williams. And he posts that, and then Christian Watson's dad posts something of like, quit rage baiting or something. It was a whole thing. I'm not even, the funny part isn't even that. The funny part is I took that exact same video, the exact same play. I have got my phone out. I'm watching Seavon the whole way. I'm capturing it to potentially post on social media, and he has the double catch, and I'm like, not posting it. And this is not a dig at Kyle. I almost did just anyway, but I'm like, people are going to just completely, blow up because he double caught it. And so I'm like, I'm just not posting it. I sent it to Justice as a joke and basically said the scouting report needs to match, or it seems to match, or whatever. And it was totally just a joke, but I was not going to post it because I just knew what the reaction was going to be. And then Kyle posts it. Now, again, totally innocuous. And then, of course, it 1,000,000% gets that exact reaction of, oh, he double caught it, the hands, oh no, etc. And then you get Christian Watson's dad responding in a whatever way. And it was just funny that I'm glad I avoided that entire thing by not posting it. And again, Kyle was great by posting it. I have no issue with posting it, but just kind of funny on the back end there. Packers seem to have a new offensive line philosophy of agile, athletic offensive tackles and big bruising interior offensive linemen. And I'm here for it. Seems like a good way to handle run blocking and pass pro. Yeah. So I would press pause a little bit. The reason being is there was clearly some intention with Aaron Banks and Anthony Belton of going and getting some bigger guys, right? That being said, and somebody posted this on, I think, the comments today on YouTube of like, funny how we're talking about the Packers getting bigger, yet they had Caleb Williams, who was like, 6'9", 400 pounds, and he's gone, and yet somehow we got bigger. Obviously, we're talking about players who are actually going to play, and Caleb Jones, excuse me. I think I said Caleb Williams. Of course, not Caleb Williams. Caleb Jones. Caleb Jones was not going to play, but they definitely had some intention of that with Banks and Belton. But what I will add is that Banks and Belton are both very good movers, and they still fit the overall athletic profile of Green Bay that they look for. They just also happen to be bigger bodies. there is a world in which, if you go into next season, for instance, that Jordan Morgan and Zach Tom are your tackles. Neither are the biggest guys in the world. You could still have, Elton at center, who's a solid size, but he's not like a behemoth by any means. You could have probably still like Sean Ryan at right guard and then, a battle somewhere else. And maybe that's not Anthony Belton. You might not end up with this. Obviously, sorry, Banks would be at left guard and Banks would be a little bit bigger, but he's still more of like a movement guy as well. You might not have this big offensive line next year. Maybe you do. And maybe it does end up that way, but I wouldn't go quite that far yet. The other thing I will add here is if it were as simple as just going out and getting big guys and putting them on the offensive line, everyone would be stacking their offensive line with 350-pound guys. It doesn't work that way. You have to have a little bit of everything. You have to have the size, but you have to have the movement ability too. If you guys want players to pull, if you want guys to have the agility and the change of direction in pass pro, whatever that thing might be that you need it, you're going to need some of that agility as well. So just having bigger guys in and of itself does not necessarily equate to a better run game or a better anything. You still have to go out and execute the way that you need to execute. So I like the direction that they're heading in. I do think Banks and Belton are very unique in the fact that they do hit the movement thresholds that you look for, but also they've got a little bit of bulk behind them, which I love. But let's see how it kind of plays out. Let's see where they end up. Let's see if Belton can even get in the lineup this year or next year. It's a tough lineup to crack right now. And they still have guys like Zach Tom that are still, not undersized, but on the smaller side for his specific position. So let's just see how it plays out. But I do, in general, John, really like the direction that they're going in. I'm resigned to the fact that Hafley, I'm assuming you mean, will leave for the head coaching job. I just hope he doesn't go for the first one, but waits for a good situation, both for him and for the Packers. Yeah, I mean, the thing is you never know if you're going to get a second opportunity, right? I don't think he would necessarily just take anything if it were an awful opportunity, but you never quite know if you're going to get that second chance. And so if he gets a head coaching opportunity next year and gets offered a job, there's a really good chance that he just takes it. And if some team is offering, there's a good chance that multiple teams could be offering as well. Either way, we're still a little bit of a ways away from that. How this Packers defense performs this year will go a long way in deciding if Jeff Hafley is a top candidate next year. If they're a mid or below tier defense next year, it's just not going to happen, right? Like you're going to have to put together at minimum another top 10 defense. And if he really wants to be on the top of the radar, probably needs to put a top 5 defense together. If he does that, it's awesome, right? You're not going to be upset by the fact that he put together a top 5 defense. Hopefully it's on the way to a Super Bowl and then he gets that head coaching job somewhere. In the meantime, they're going to have options and they'll search far and wide to find that next defensive coordinator who can fill his shoes. But hey, listen, if he's that great that he leads this defense to a top 5 performance and gets a head coaching job because of it, he did his job and he rechanged the culture on defense in Green Bay, and he will be deserving of a job at that point in time. And then it's just up to Hafley and what's best for him and his family. And by all means, like I said, he'll have earned it at that point if he gets that opportunity. Chili cheese coming in with one of my favorite Taco Bell menu items here. Chili cheese burrito, an absolute go-to. Beyond love it every single time. Has it been said that Quay's reason for not practicing is, or has it been said what Quay's practicing for not what Quay's reason for not practicing is it possible they are finishing up a contract rework or extension for him, and that is the reason for missing? Do not know the reason, and anything would be guesswork at this point. I talked about it a little bit the other day on the live show after practice, of just saying, like, I don't want to stir the pot here. I have no reason that this would be any, indication that there would be any contract dispute here or potential contract extension or anything like that. But when they did decline his 5th-year option, he is a free agent next year. And there was already the questions yesterday of like, well, why is Zach Tom showing up for OTAs when he's a free agent next year and should be trying to get a big time contract? Quay Walker can look at it the same way, not to the extent probably of Zach Tom, but that he is saying, hey, I'm an unrestricted free agent next year. I'm deserving of an extension. I want an extension. Maybe I'm not going to show up to OTAs. I'll show up to mandatory minicamp. I'll show up to training camp, but until my contract is extended, I'm not going to do that stuff. I don't know that that's the case. We have no indication of that. We know that he was in the rehab group last week and he was not at the practice yesterday. What I will note is that there are 3 OTA practices each day of the week. So 3 last year and 3 this year. And with that being the case, 3 last week, 3 this week. And with that being the case, there are players that can come and go between those as well. So we didn't see him there Tuesday. Maybe he was there on Wednesday and Thursday or whatever days that they have it this week. And that could be a possibility as well. We're not always privy to that information. And before we again start spreading rumors or what it could be, we just don't have any reporting from anyone at this point that there is sort of any contract dispute with Quay. I will say, if that would end up being the case, and again, we're a ways away from that. We have nothing on that whatsoever. It's just pure, even just uninformed speculation at this point. And I'm not even speculating it, to be even more clear. If that were to be the case, it would get to the point of like, all right, you are at 3 contract disputes now. You are at Jaire, you are at Elton, and you are at Quay. And that does start to add up and be a little bit more of a problem. 2 is probably a big enough problem as it is. We don't know where, Elton is at, whether he's going to be at, mandatory minicamp next week. We don't know if we're right on the cusp of a Jaire breakthrough and maybe he's going to be back. But I don't think you want to go into training camp with 3 potential contract disputes. So hopefully a couple of these are ready to be done, and hopefully we don't have a third in Quay Walker. Do you have any teams, players, or coaches outside of the NFC North you just haven't ever been able to stand? For example, mine are the Niners, the front office coaching staff, and team besides Barkley. I don't know if it's that I can't stand them. I mean, I don't like the Cowboys. In fact, I really don't like anyone in the NFC East for that matter, but I'm not a Cowboys guy. I think just growing up in the 90s and Packers Cowboys being the big sort of rivalry then, I think that was definitely something to it. I don't have anything against the Seahawks anymore because it's basically a totally different organization at this point. But going back to the Richard Sherman Seahawks days, that was definitely something I could not stand with Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson and Richard Sherman and that whole group. That was one, but now it's just, I actually really like Mike McDonald, and obviously Schneider being a guy from Wisconsin, I've always liked, but that was one in the past I didn't like. Outside of that, I don't think off the top of my head there's any team that is really in that category. I hate the way that the Saints have operated, just as like a fan of roster building and roster construction and salary cap and things like that. I hate how the Saints operate. Clearly the Cleveland Browns and some of their stuff. Anytime you get a big time meddling owner, that's something that's always a little bit of a turnoff as well, but nothing crazy. It's mostly, Vikings, Bears sort of stuff, but Cowboys have always been one that I haven't really been able to stomach either. Coaching on the Eagles. Sorry, I didn't finish your question here. Just can't stand Williams, and I think St. Brown is a bum. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown, to be honest. I think he's one of the really, really unbelievably talented players in this league. He gets credit. I still don't know that he gets enough credit, but I can understand why Packers fans don't like him, especially in his comments and T-shirt and his little helmet stand last year. I can understand it, but as a player, I really do like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Do you think the insight into 97's injury last year explains why the Packers weren't so fired up to add to the front 7? No, I think that they were certainly open to adding to that front 7, to be honest. I think, we saw that, again, top 30 visits mattered, and they brought in a lot of defensive tackles at that spot and some defensive ends as well. I think if things fall different, they easily could have taken a defensive tackle or a defensive end. I think they really legitimately felt good about their wide receiver room, but Golden and Williams were there and they loved both, so they took them. I think in a different world that went slightly differently, where Golden was gone and maybe one of the defensive tackles or ends was still there, we'd be talking about Green Bay adding to their front 7 and then wondering if why they didn't add more to their wide receiver room. So these are always just interesting dynamics to look at, but that's how the draft fell to Green Bay. And it certainly is a factor, right? When it comes to Kenny, that if they're feeling he can bounce back in a significant way and that last year's down year was more due to injury, it definitely plays a factor. But I bet there were other alternatives to this offseason where Green Bay could have added more to that front 7, and it just didn't work out that way. All right, you got to sign someone from the 2019 free agent class. You can sign Turner, Preston, or Amos 1 year, $2 million, or Zadarius Smith 1 year, $8 million. Who are you signing? Chicken, I'm going to ask you to clarify if you're still in the chat. Is this the current version of the player or the player that they signed in 2019? That will go a long way. You actually don't need to clarify. I can just answer that as is right now. The answer is Zadarius either way. Turner, Preston, and Amos give you nothing in their current form in 2025. So if Green Bay somehow felt like a reunion with Zadarius Smith was going to be worth it, I guess I'll just take it. But if you're telling me I get 2019 version of Zadarius Smith, where he was, I think, one of the greatest defensive players in Packers history in a given season that year, I will absolutely pay $8 million for that version of Zadarius Smith. So either way, the answer is Zadarius Smith. Andy, do you have any personal ethical? Actually, I take that back, chicken. I'm gonna rephrase one thing. If I had to sign current versions of each of these, and it was Zadarius Smith at 1 year, $8 million, or Preston or Amos, I guess it has to be Preston probably. Preston at 1 year, 2. All right, do I want to pay $6 million more for a player that might actually be able to play? Because I think Preston's basically done at this point. Yeah, I'm still going to go Zadarius either way. And did you have any personal ethical guidelines for potential sponsors, or is it more informal vetting case by case? It's a great question. So, with YouTube, I don't really get any say. I could theoretically, I think, uncheck certain categories of stuff. Like I think, uncheck political ads, but I don't think I could uncheck certain versions, like which political party, so to speak. So, and I think I could uncheck maybe like alcohol or things like that, gambling or those sort of things. But I don't have a ton of say over like the specific sponsors or things like that when it comes to YouTube. It's just more categories that I have some level of say over. And it's not like if I uncheck that, it's not like something else necessarily takes its place. So definitely, like obviously during election season, having election ads on there, as annoying as they might be, is definitely it's a huge spike in ad revenue during that time frame. With Blue Wire, with me being the working in partner with Blue Wire for the audio podcast, they have the say over the ads. I think there was something at one point in time where I could have put in writing if I didn't want, again, like gambling or something. And if I went to them and it was like, don't want anything to do with Prize Picks anymore, they would probably say like, all right, you're going to lose a bunch of money because of that. But I think they would probably listen to me. But again, I did not put anything specifically on that list when they first gave it to me. Here's how I view this. And this is just my 2 cents on it. If there was something that was extremely important to me from an ethical standpoint, and there could be those things, I would probably look into it more to see if there would be a way that I could not have that advertised either on the YouTube platform or on the audio platform. I have not had something reach that level where I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing here? Like, I can't have this be representative or whatever. And it is a little bit different when you're basically signing over and saying, Blue Wire, you take care of it, and YouTube, you take care of it. And then it's a little bit more out of sight, out of mind. And again, there hasn't been anything that's escalated to that level. As far as everything else, whether it be alcohol, whether it be gambling, whether it be anything like that, to me, that is not my job description, nor is it my right to decide what ads that anybody gets coming to them. And what I mean by that is somebody that's viewing that might have a gambling addiction or might hate gambling or might feel that gambling is against their religion. And I definitely respect that, but that is not necessarily my job to limit that to other people who might want a Prize Picks code or that might enjoy some of those things and might want those promotions coming their way, or maybe would prefer seeing those sort of things. So I just don't view it as sort of my quote unquote responsibility in that situation to decide. What I also feel a little bit more steadfast in when it comes to that, and you can obviously tell I've put thought, effort, and energy into this, is we are a NFL-based podcast, Packers specific, but an NFL-based podcast. If you are offended by alcohol or gambling or any of that sort of stuff, or political ads, you're not watching the NFL in and of itself. You cannot go through an NFL game without a alcohol, gambling, or political ad during political season, right? Regardless of what affiliation you are politically. So I do feel a little bit more of like, all right, if you're going to turn off Pack a Day because those certain ads are on there, you're being hypocritical because you probably shouldn't be watching the NFL because you're going to get bombarded with those same sort of ads anyway, if that makes sense. So that's my thought process on it. If there was something that raised to the level that I was just like, horrified by, I would absolutely look into it. I have thankfully not come across anything like that as of yet. But if there ever is anything, feel free to email me. packetapodcast@gmail.com, and I'm happy to take a look at it and review it and see if it would raise to that level of me being like, how do we get this the heck off of my channel? Because I don't want to necessarily be representing that. And the other thing I would just say is, depending on the situation, for me personally, if the NFL, or like when Fox is on and a Coors Light commercial comes on, to me, that's not the NFL or whatever being like, drink Coors Light, so to speak. That is Fox selling advertising. They own the rights to whatever. YouTube is how I view it, is YouTube owns the rights to the YouTube channel, or to some extent of what ads are going to go on there. Blue Wire owns the rights to what ads are going to go on their channel. And the Pack a Day podcast is getting ad revenue from that. And yes, it's going to show up, but that's just how this sort of works, whether you're TV, radio, podcasting, etc. So long story short, but hopefully that is some level of help to why I do it the way that I do. And again, if there's ever any concerns, certainly feel free to email me and I'm happy to look into it. Are you going to try to do an away game stream with Grossi this year? Not that I'm aware of, Chicken. I haven't had the opportunity to work with Grossi in a while. That's nothing for to say that we wouldn't, or like we have in the past. We've collaborated in the past a little bit, but yeah, anytime that he would be open to it, or anytime we could get Tom Grossi on, I would be all for it. Just haven't, the schedules haven't matched in a while. I'll put it that way. And you can understand, right? Like, he's doing stuff 365. I'm doing stuff 365. It's just tough to kind of find that right avenue to make it all work together. Goot loves his end of camp trades. I don't think you trade offensive line depth, but could he get an early day 3 pick for Dobbs? Do either Wilson or Brooks have value if they only want a third running back? And Egbari, anyone else? I might do an episode on this at some point. Again, I'm very much against trading the offensive line depth, unless it's like Travis Glover, Kadeem Telfort, Jacob Monk, somebody like that. And you can get like the Cole Van Landen trade, right? Where you can pick up a late round pick, and maybe you've got guys like John Williams and others who are ready to step up. If that's something that you can get, then I'm for it at that point. But I want to keep those top 7 guys for sure. And then as far as Dobbs goes, I'm pretty against that as well, just because I do think Romeo looks really good right now. And I also think that he has a connection with Jordan. And I'm just not ready for, all right, so you trade Romeo away and Christian Watson's not back. And we don't know like what level he's going to be at, even when he does come back, right? So maybe it takes him until 2026 to be completely back to Christian Watson. I don't think I'm ready for just Reed, Wicks, Golden, Reed, Wicks, Golden, and Seavon Williams to kind of be the 4 wide receivers for the time being. I don't think you're big enough with just, if you're going to put Golden, Wicks, and Reed out there as your primary 3, I just don't think that's a big enough wide receiver group. So I think and I get Seavon but he's raw. He's a rookie. I just think you need Romeo this year. And I think you kind of evaluate how he plays this year. You can reevaluate. I would reevaluate it at the trade deadline. If like your team's not performing as expected and he's going into a contract year and you want to trade him at that point, sure. But anyone that's like legitimately good, whether it's an offensive lineman or a Romeo Dobbs or anyone like that, I'm not trading until at least the trade deadline and then making a determination at that point. Certainly not before the season starts. You're a team that's trying to win a Super Bowl this year. You're going to need all the depth and all the bodies that you can get to get through a season. Like, those bodies are going to matter a ton. As far as like anyone else, yeah, if like Wilson or Brooks, if you can get a pick for them and you want to only keep 3 running backs, I think you could certainly vet that out and see if you can get a pick for one of those guys. I don't know that you could, but maybe you get a conditional 7th or something like that. And then Egbari would be one that I've talked about in the past before. If you feel really good about LVN, Gary, Brenton Cox, Barron Sorrell, Colin Oliver as your top 5, I think you could probably get away with trading Egbari, especially with that $3 million contract. And if somebody did offer you a pick in return, it's even more, ammunition as to why you would maybe want to do that. But I could also see why Green Bay would just want to keep him. And again, a lot of that is dependent upon what kind of camp that Egbari has. If he has a great camp and you just want him as part of that rotation, then you're probably not taking any late round pick for him either. So they very easily could find a late round pick for somebody as you get closer to the, cut down days, but who that is, I think is a little bit tougher to glean at this point in time. Barron Sorrell does not look any sort of way because defensive ends, defensive tackles, offensive linemen are not playing anything near real football at the moment. So tough to glean anything from Barron Sorrell. I am going to do a rookie report for tomorrow's show, and more importantly, more of like a rookie playing time expectation. So I'll go through anything that I've kind of noticed, but with the trench guys, it's just really, really tough at this point. Does Bullard have a shot for that second safety spot, or is he really 2 injuries out? I think he will get in the conversation a bit. I still expect Evan Williams to just kind of win that safety spot. I think there could be a package or two, specifically maybe in situations where they want to play more too high. Bullard is really good coming down from depth. So if you want to play too high safeties and you want one of those safeties to come crashing down against the run, you don't want to do it pre-snap. Like if you're doing it pre-snap, Evan Williams can do it. Xavier McKinney can do it. Bullard can do it. Any of those guys, Katana Ladapo can do it. They can be there pre-snap. That's not a big deal. All those guys are capable of playing in the box. But if you want to keep a too high safety look and then hold that until you see it's a run play, and then you want that safety to come screaming down, Javon Bullard is very good at that. So I could theoretically see a situation in which you have maybe some safety sets where Javon Bullard is in there instead of Evan Williams. You can't just do it in that situation because obviously that's a tell at that point. But I could see some formations or packages where maybe Bullard is there, but I expect Williams to be kind of the leader in the clubhouse there and probably the guy that plays primarily in your 2 safety sets. Is there a rookie that has already exceeded the expectations you had for them coming into OTAs? No, I don't think so. I mean, Golden is everything that I could have wanted and more up until this point. But again, that doesn't even mean anything. So it's really tough at this point. Again, I'll talk about it a little bit more on tomorrow's show when we talk about the rookies, but I just don't, I don't know that anyone could have exceeded those expectations just in an OTA, but yeah, Golden would be the closest one if there was one. Is Daniel Whalen to Zach Tom the new 12-17? If it's not, I don't know what is. That's probably the secret. I'm surprised they ran it when it was open to the media. Anytime you have a trick play that good, you usually want to keep it under the vest. Now, maybe they had it look terrible on purpose so that somebody like me would tweet out, wow, fake field goals are awful. Daniel Whalen to Zach Tom is a absolute nightmare. And then they run it in a game and, Tom takes it 80 yards. Well, I guess not 80 yards on a fake field goal, but like 50 yards for a touchdown. Maybe that's going to be the case, but no, that was a little bit ugly yesterday. Do we think if Isaiah Bond is ever cleared that the Packers would kick the tires on him? I don't think so. Not with the state of the wide receiver room. I guess if he's cleared, they did bring him in for a top 30. I just don't even know. Like, there's not a spot for him on the roster. If he was like, I want to go to Green Bay, that's probably what it would take. Like Isaiah Bond would have to probably be cleared of everything. And Bond would basically need to say, guys, I want to come to Green Bay. I want a small market. I want to just focus on football. And if he did that, his agent did that and said Green Bay was where they wanted to be, sure, maybe that's the situation. But unless he's completely exonerated and, doesn't or only wants to play in Green Bay, I just don't know that ends up happening just because of the state of the Packers wide receiver room. I don't know that they really have a spot for him anyway. But hey, if he wants to be here and is willing to come and basically be a trial player, sure. Again, assuming that he would be, exonerated of everything that was basically in his past at that point. 23, I get it. TMI for you, Andy. Lost my virginity to paranoid android, and I have a full hunting bears back tattoo. You are right, Evan. That is TMI. But congratulations, I think. Happy Wednesday, Andy. I despise the Cowboys and 49ers mainly because of the fan bases. I no longer hate the division rivals, but get peeved when the fans start thinking they are better than they are. Tale as old as time, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Just would like to mention I can't stand St. Brown over under 600 yards for Golden. I think any wide receiver prop, I'm just more apt to say under. Just with all the different weapons in this offense, from Jacobs to Lloyd to Musgrave to Kraft to a billion different wide receivers, just any receiver prop just seems like an automatic under. But I do think Golden will have a real opportunity to hit the over. I know how many mouths there are to feed in this offense, and I'm not optimistic of anyone hitting any levels because of that. But I do think he is very, very talented and will get a lot of opportunities. And I think if he plays a full 17, there's a good chance that he will hit over the 600 yards. Too good to see you. Do you think the team still needs an addition to the roster to compete for the 14th championship? If so, what position would that be? I don't necessarily think that there's anything at the moment. I do wonder if Jaire is gone, if you have enough depth at corner. We've talked about that a ton. I do wonder still if you have enough depth at defensive tackle. We've talked about that. I'm more of the mind of get to the trade deadline, see where you're at, and see what's available. I don't think there's anything out there outside of Trey Hendrickson right now that is going to move the needle for you. And if they want, I'll stand by like everything. I don't think they have any interest in Trey Hendrickson. I shouldn't say any, but I don't think they have realistic interest in Trey Hendrickson at this point. But I would not be against it. If you could find a way to make that work, I do think he's a difference maker. Now, from a salary cap standpoint, it really makes things extremely complicated next year. But sometimes you got to be bold, and sometimes scared money don't make money. And you've got to be willing to say, hey, you know what? This is an opportunity for us to get arguably the best. I mean, he was literally like the best pass rusher in football a season ago. Probably still has 3 at minimum, really good years ahead of him. And you just say, screw it. Rashawn Gary, Trey Hendrickson are going to be our defensive ends. And that's how we're going to win on defense. I trust Jeff Hafley unequivocally when you've got that defensive front with Trey Hendrickson in it. We've got the offense to put up 30 points per game. And now let's go out and win a Super Bowl. So I would be for it. I just don't think there's any chance of it actually happening. And outside of that, I don't think there's anything that moves the needle for you. So I think get to the trade deadline, see where you're at. You're going to have some big time games to open the season to have a really great litmus test, and then some winnable games after that. And I think you're going to have a really good idea of what you're missing, or what, if you're even a buyer or a seller at that point in time. You should know where your injuries are at. Is Jordan hurt, or something that would make it so that you don't want to be a buyer anyway? I think at this point, I would probably wait a little bit more towards that point in time and then see what's available. I've been drooling to see the Pack beat the Lions since that guy wore the Green Bay Sucks t-shirt. This is the year, week 1, right away. Packers win over the Lions. Tulio wants the over for Golden at 600 yards. Andy, haven't heard much about Romeo. He can still deliver really good production, I'd assume. Have you seen him training these last few weeks? How does he look? He looks awesome. I forget who said he looks, I think, was it Matt that said he looks like a specimen? I think there was the joke with all of the specimen talk yesterday, but he does. He looks fantastic. He's in great shape, had the really nice 2-point conversion. Just again, there's that connection with Jordan to Romeo that just feels a little bit different. He said he's, over the concussion stuff. Obviously one big hit and it, that stuff can come back, but great to see that he's out there practicing, seems happy, seems in great spirits, doesn't seem peeved by the additional wide receiver additions or anything like that. He seems like he's in a very good spot and looks really good so far. So no, all good signs for Romeo. Given that Walker and Romeo might be gone next season, what season stats would they have to accomplish this season for the Packers to reevaluate letting them go? I think for Quay, I don't necessarily know that it needs to be a statistical thing. I just think he needs to show that he is like truly still the number 1 linebacker in Green Bay. Like that he and Edgerrin Cooper are a really dynamic linebacker duo. And if he looks the part and is a true legitimate starter and has, which is probably like his best season, right? Like, I don't think that is much to ask. I don't think he's put together a, really good season yet in his time as a pro. If he puts together a good season, they just keep him. And I think he's going to be there regardless of what the statistics look like. If he has a good season and does his job, he's going to be back, would be my guess. As far as Romeo, I think Romeo needs to be what I would say is the unquestioned, I don't want to say number 1 guy, but like Romeo or like Jordan's go-to to some extent. Like the first place that he looks is Romeo Doubs. Like it's his safety valve. It's his guy. It's his connection. And if he leads the team in receiving yards and catches and whatever, and there is that connection between him and Jordan, then I think you're very likely to try to retain him in some real way and not let him hit, the open market. Because if your quarterback is in a position where he loves playing with that player and wants that player to be there, you don't necessarily want to do that to your franchise guy and say, nope, sorry, we're going in a different direction. So I think his best bet is by getting on the same page with Jordan and building that connection. Because if Jordan wants him there, that's going to go a very long way. And I think the front office saying like, all right, we've got to do something to keep him here. If he just looks like the, second, third, fourth best receiver on the team, and Golden and Wicks and Reed and those guys just look better than him, then I think it's going to be really tough for the Packers to keep Romeo, and they'll probably just go in a different direction at that point. Do you think the Rams are getting too much hype? They're in front of Green Bay in so many rankings, and I don't get it. Holes on O-line, corner, linebacker, and other things, and aging Stafford. Who would you put in front of Green Bay in the NFC? How I would just look at it, Ian, is I think there's a group of teams that are all very much in the same category. And I think the Packers and Rams are in that very same category. Let's see, how do I want to do this? All right, so this is on May 19th, so this may not be super up to date. This is per May 19th, but so Philly had the best odds to win the Super Bowl, and I'm just doing NFC here at plus 600. The lines were plus 900. Then you had the 49ers at 13-1. That seems over aggressive to me. Washington at 16-1, Rams and Packers at 20-1. Then Vikings and Buccaneers at 30-1. To me, I would say Eagles are one. And then I would probably be a little bit more apt to say Lions, 49ers, Commanders, Rams, Packers are all a little bit more clustered together, kind of in one group, with maybe the Lions being just a tick ahead of those other ones. But I would probably put them more in a very similar category. But I would probably only put the Eagles truly ahead, and then the Lions maybe just a tad bit ahead of Green Bay at this point. Thanks for everything, Andy. Don't get to tell you that enough, man. Ian, I appreciate that a ton. It's a joy to do, and I just appreciate that everyone is here and wanting to talk football. There's nothing better than just talking Packers, and you guys make it very fun and very easy and very enjoyable. Indeed, Andy, you're the man. Thanks so much for your grind. It feeds us Packer fans worldwide, especially in the offseason. Tip my hat, Tulio. Tip my hat to you as well, and thank you for all the supports. It definitely does not go unnoticed, I should say. Thanks to whoever gifted you a membership. There's been a few people, Most Hated Minnesotan, and Carla Delgado have been gifting a lot of memberships lately. There's been some others as well, but I know they've been gifting a ton. So I don't know who for sure it was, but there's a good chance it was probably one of those two. Any news from camp on the Elton situation? Would we be able to pay him and Tom? No news on the first part. Yes, they absolutely would be able to pay Elton and Tom next year if they wanted to do that. Packers way too early wide receiver targets breakdown. I have no idea. Like, just absolutely none. I would love to kind of predict it. I will go Reed, Dobbs, Golden, Wicks. And then it's just a crapshoot. Like, does Watson get back in enough time? How much does Seavon Williams play? Those sort of things. But I'll go Reed, Dobbs, Golden, Wick. Did I say Golden Wicks or Wicks Golden? I'm going to go Reed, Dobbs, Golden, Wicks in that order. And then everything after that is a complete crapshoot. And I'm not including running backs or tight ends. I'm just going wide receivers there. But Reed, number one, I just think Reed has the most defined role. And I think he's going to get targeted quite a bit. That's just my thought on it. And then I think Dobbs, again, has that connection with Jordan. And then after that, I think Golden's going to get quite a bit just based on his role within the offense. Then Wicks is going to go from the number one targeted guy to number 4. Just think if he continues to drop the ball, he's going to continue to go down the depth chart a little bit. But that's where I'll go with right now. But I do not feel confident about any of those rankings, if I'm being honest. Is there a membership opportunity that removes all the ads? I don't mind the content of the gambling or weight loss ads. They're just annoying. No. But if you sign up for YouTube Premium, then that gets rid of your ads when you're watching the YouTube channel. And that does kick some to the channels that you watch as well in those situations. So YouTube Premium will get rid of the ads for you, is my understanding from a YouTube standpoint. There is nothing on the audio side, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it. There we go. Most Hated Minnesotan got you covered as well. Is there a risk of hampering Morgan's development, having him practice at left tackle and right guard? Don't guys say switching from one side to the other is really difficult? Maybe, but I think this is just the culture that Green Bay lives in. If you're going to be a Packers offensive lineman, you need to be versatile. You just have to. And I think if Green Bay is going to cultivate that culture and really allow players to get a well-rounded approach to being an offensive lineman, it might hamper you a little bit with mastering one particular position, but it's certainly going to give you more opportunity to get on the field. And it's going to make you a more well-rounded player as you get into free agency and your second contract and things like that. So I think there's advantages and disadvantages. I think if I were a player, I would just try to play to those advantages and do my best. And I think the nice thing is that he's not trying to learn 5 different positions at the moment. There is a piece of me that would say, like, hey, is there a way that we can have him train left tackle and left guard? And, do you bring in Aaron Banks as a right guard and then let, the rest of the guys battle it out at left guard and left tackle and do that? But it's not necessarily that easy either. Aaron Banks has played left guard the entire time. He probably wants to be there. So yeah, it's a little bit complex and complicated, but I would say definitely advantages and disadvantages. And I don't think it's going to ruin Jordan Morgan to any real extent. The ads are annoying. Might need to reinstate premium myself. Hey, I understand it. If that's what you want to do, I totally get it. Just know some of the baked in stuff. If like I do have something with, Z-Biotics or something like that, it will not block those, since those are baked in to the show in and of itself. Those are not YouTube ads. So if you're looking for premium to get rid of all ads, just know that if it's an ad read by me, it will not be included in that. Going to Ravens at Packers this year, felt like the game would be a more coveted primetime game. Yeah, I think sometimes people wait on the late season games just to see a little bit more of what like the record is the team playing for anything? And sometimes you can get some good deals on those, but no, I think that's one of the best games on the entire schedule. And Renee, if I were going to one, that would certainly be one that I would have on the very top of my list as well. Carla has been, she's been awesome at gifting a ton of people, a ton of different memberships. So could not agree more. Alex, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate that a ton. Yeah, I cannot say enough, guys. Like, those comments really do mean a lot. There are days where you get the negative stuff and it just bombards you with it, and it can definitely drag you down from time to time. No, like as long as I've been doing this, and sometimes you're just like, well, is there a reason? Like, what, whatever, and you just kind of second guess yourself. So I always appreciate it, and thank you guys again for all the support. It really does mean a lot. If I told you the Packers are in the Super Bowl this year, who would you want to see them play against? Which NFC Championship opponent could be the most satisfying victory? Give me the Browns in the Super Bowl. I will take that. I want the victory. So give me I guess they might be a team of destiny if it were at that point. So I don't know, a realistic opponent. Give me Bengals. I think Bengals Packers Super Bowl would be very entertaining. Burrow versus Jordan Love. And if for some reason the Bengals did win, I like seeing Burrow win it and Jamar Chase. And like, I think it would still suck beyond suck, but like I could stomach it probably a little bit better. And I do think that the Bengals are usually going to Bengal, and like that franchise just finds ways to kind of screw things up sometimes. So hopefully it gives Green Bay a little bit of a better chance to actually win it. So I'll say Packers, Bengals, and give me the win over the Vikings in the NFC Championship game. Hell yeah. Like they and their fan base get super pumped up, one win away from a Super Bowl, thinking they're going to win it all, and the Packers rip it away. And not only that, but then they go on to win the Super Bowl, just like when the Packers won in 2010 after beating the Bears in the NFC Championship. I want that same feeling over the Vikings. So give me that. I like the way you talked about Jordan Love's performance on these first training sessions. Sure, it doesn't mean he'll definitely play his best football, but it sure looks good and makes us hopeful. Totally agreed. And that's how I feel. So again, I'm not always going to get everything right. Hopefully I don't always get everything wrong, but what my goal is to be the eyes and ears for you guys when I'm out at practice, and just what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, all the stuff that I'm looking at tape. Again, I'm not always trying to be the perfect, perfectionist when it comes to predicting everything. I'm more often just trying to give you where I see things as they stand, and then allowing you guys to do whatever you want with it. Try to give those disclaimers of like, hey, don't make too much of a Jordan Love run through 2 OTAs. It doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot, but it certainly is a whole hell of a lot better than the alternative where instead of 17 for 20 yesterday, he was 3 of 20. We would definitely be having a conversation about that. So definitely better to be on the opposite side of it. I would not watch YouTube with ads. I pay $7 a month for premium, totally worth $20 or more with how much content I consume. Totally get that, Mike McGee. And again, content creators do get a kick of that. I don't think it's probably as much, but they do get a kick of that as well. I've had premium for a while. Can't stand YouTube ads. A lot of promos for YouTube premium here tonight. I love that you are doing baked in now, and Andy, make that money. I appreciate that, Mike McGee. I don't think it's going to be a ton, but obviously we have some great partners. So, obviously super pumped to be working with Z-Biotics right now. It's a product that I definitely believe in. So that makes it really easy and fun to kind of, do the ad read for. And then, locally too, when we get to work with Luigi's Pizza and, Habish and Rotier, those I cannot, I'm not getting paid by either of them right now. I don't have, running ads for either of them. They're awesome people. I legitimately enjoy the relationships that I've built with both of those two groups. And it's just really, really fun to kind of get to support, teams that I really enjoy working with, and companies that I think hold real, true Wisconsin values. And I think both of those companies are very much held in that regard. And I certainly hold them in that regard. So it certainly makes it a lot more enjoyable for me when doing that stuff, when it's companies that I believe in and get to work with. And all 3 of those that I just mentioned are certainly that. YouTube Premium also gets you YouTube Music Premium. There you go. Packers versus Bills would be a hell of a Super Bowl. Totally agree, Tulio. The negatives hit harder than the positives. That's why we got to keep bolstering that ego. The ego's probably fine, but like I said, no, it does really, like I said, I just do really appreciate it. And yes, those negatives sometimes, it's funny because like look at today, for example. Maybe I think today's probably going to be a good example. You can easily get in your head on stuff, and I'll show you exactly what I mean, or at least tell you exactly what I mean. Like today, for example, usually my like to dislike percentage is the average for the channel is 98.4%. All right. So 98.4% of the people that grade the episode are likely to give it a thumbs up. 1.6% are likely to give it a thumbs down. All right. So just to give you an idea of where the channel average is at. Today, today was at 97.9%, and yesterday was at 97.3%. So you can kind of just easily get in your head of like, all right, what did I do different today that maybe people didn't like the episode as much, and it was a little bit lower graded than what it usually would be. And then you look at it, a 97.9% today means that of the 419 people that did either a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the episode, 410 of them liked it. 9 of them did not. And you just have to remember, like, it's 9 people that decided to show up and it just wasn't their cup of tea. Like if you have a 97.9% like rate on anything in the modern day and age, you're probably doing a pretty good job. So it's the world that we live in from a social media standpoint, and likes and dislikes and engagement and numbers and all of this stuff. And it warps your mind with certain stuff. And you just sometimes in some days have to take a step back and be like, what am I really going to lose sleep over, or worry, and not obviously lose sleep, but like worry about that 9 people hit the thumbs down icon on today's episode. Like it means absolutely nothing. So it's easy to get in your head about it, but when you take a step back and take a deep breath about it, it's pretty easy to be like, all right, this is pretty ridiculous to even think about this in any sort of negative way. But like I said, the positive comments do go a very long way as well. I think that's why the Super Bowl lost instinct is bad as some of the other ones. Seeing Elway get his ring was almost worth losing. John, I cannot agree with that. I still have that stupid Elway spin playing in my mind. When you're 14-point favorites, you got to come away with a win. It was just an ugly, ugly game. It's one that we don't really talk about. I just think it's maybe so long ago now. We talk about 4th and 26. We talk about the Terrell Owens play. We talk about, I don't want to go over all of them, but you guys know the plays. I just feel like still that there's every right and opportunity to beat the Broncos in that Super Bowl. Listen, they played a great game. They were a really good team, but still wanted Green Bay to win that one. It still very much stung to me. I'll put it that way. Any opportunity to bring in a player or staff member to a Q&A here for us? I don't think so, Tulio. If I get the opportunity, I would love to do so. Maybe for probably not a members Q&A, but maybe at some point could do it for a regular Q&A. Always open to it. Have not had that opportunity come up as of yet, but if ever there was that opportunity, I would certainly love to do it. I don't think it's fair that people line up to criticize bad performances in camp, but when someone balls out, they definitely say it means nothing. Yeah, it's just, again, this is the sort of the world that we live in, and I try to be cognizant of it, right? For anything that I say negative about players, I try to point out as many positives as I can. It's not to yin and yang it. If everyone's playing like crap, then I need to say everyone's playing like crap. But I do try to be a little bit cognizant of it. And, more than anything, I just want to show you guys what I'm seeing out there. And if it's good, I'm going to tell you it's good. And if it's bad, I'm going to tell you it's bad. Thankfully, OTAs so far have been more good than bad. And there's been a lot more positive things to go over than negative. You gave the wide receiver order, straight up receptions in the top 6. Where will Tucker and Josh be in this year? Again, I think these are impossible questions, but I think Josh will be 4th, and I don't even know, where were they last year? I'd probably just say wherever they were last year. Just give me the same. Oh wow, Jacobs was really low. I would have. Well, let's see receptions. All right, we're doing receptions here. Jacobs was 5th, and Tucker Kraft was 2nd. I'm going to say Kraft will be 3rd, and I'll say Jacobs stays at 5th. So 3rd and 5th. 9 Lions fans capping. I appreciate that. Most state of Minnesotan. Love Elway's game, though. He was pretty clutch the final 2 seasons, for sure. No question about it. If you don't think that I was in my backyard trying to throw a ball like John Elway, Dan Marino, Brett Favre, all those guys, Joe Montana, I was in my backyard almost every single day trying to emulate some of those guys out on the field, and John Elway was certainly one of them. No question about it. Lions fans are probably more classy. Thumbs down are definitely Vikings fans, or Bears fans maybe too. I missed the Super Bowl win over the Pats and the loss to the Broncos. Began watching in January 99, wildcard versus the 49ers with that TO reception to lose the game at the end. Thankfully, Tulio, they've won a Super Bowl since. Otherwise, I might say that you might need to find a new team, I'm just kidding. But thankfully you were able to see that 2010 one. But no, the 96 team was really, really fun. Hopefully you've had the opportunity to go back and watch that Super Bowl in its totality. It's a great game. The Andre Rison catch to begin with, the Desmond Howard plays, Reggie White with the 3 sacks. Had the opportunity to watch a little bit of that lately and just some really fun stuff in that game. So if you haven't, definitely do so. But yeah, that 49ers one with the TO reception, that was a very, very tough one to stomach, to say the least. All right, friends, looks like we have exhausted. Oh, Tulio coming in. And that started my fandom with the Pack because the Packers history told by the commentators at halftime. Love that. That is beautiful. Looks like we got all the questions answered. I appreciate, again, all of you guys being here. I'll be back on Friday for happy hour. I think it's going to be at like 1:30 p.m. Central Time, a little bit different this week, but I will be here. Tomorrow's episode is going to be kind of looking at the rookies so far. As always, appreciate you. I will see you all very, very soon. B says, I was alive for the 2010 Super Bowl, but don't remember it. I'll remember it. All I remember is playoff heartbreak. Hopefully the next big win is right around the corner, Beast Bumblebee, and you can experience the jubilation that is a Packers Super Bowl win. See you guys all very soon. Appreciate you. Until next time. And as always, go Pack Go.